Yes, I can hear you. Fantastic. Yep. We're all set. Oh, okay. Will I see the chamber?
I don't have the agenda though.
Awesome. Thank you all very much. We are now calling to order the Housing and Human Welfare Committee meeting for May. It is May the 29th, 6:34 p.m. We'll do a quick roll call and then jump right into things, starting with Alderwoman Ellie Tierney
Here, present.
and Alderman Brooks Schandelmeyer, who I believe is on his way.
Right.
He said if he misses
Perfect. Okay. So, are there any? Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I move that we approve tonight's agenda.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None.
No.
Next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes. Can I make him, or can I have a motion to approve our Housing and Human Welfare Committee meeting minutes from 2/6/24?
I move that we approve the meeting minutes from 2/6/24.
Thank you so much. Next item on the agenda is the election of the chairman. However, I think we should postpone this again
Oh.
for several reasons. Obviously, one, we are short a colleague this afternoon, which I believe we would need for the motion. Do we need all council members here?
For the vote, yeah, probably. Yeah, yes, I'm hearing yes.
Okay, that and two of the three members of this committee might not be here. So I envision a future where the committees will be getting shifted around. And so what we'll do is just delay election of the chairman until our next meeting. And does that need a motion, Kaylin?
Yes.
So I move that we postpone the election of the chairman to the next available time. To be determined, or?
To the next meeting.
To the next
It'll be
meeting,
postponed
is it?
to the next
Okay.
meeting.
We'll have to
And I'll
do it
just.
again.
so
Okay.
you guys-
So, and just for clarity, I am not sure. June the 17th will be our next meeting. Looks like it's a holiday. I'm not sure if the city's closed for that. Eat
It's
out.
closed on Wednesday, the
Okay.
19th.
Okay.
What is
Perfect.
that?
Okay.
Juneteenth. So we're going to have to schedule.
Yeah, Juneteenth, right?
Finance.
Middle of the week, okay.
Okay. All right. Next item on the agenda was, we'll move on to the next section, which is 0520 or legislation, starting with 0524 Health and Safety City of Annapolis Plastic Bag Reduction Act. Any comments from my colleague from Ward 1?
Yeah, The only comment I have is the confusion that might come in the sense that I think it may not, I'm sorry, there's a higher recycling content that we're asking for in the paper bags than in the county. So I'm a little concerned. I think our bills should marry up with the county exactly, so there isn't confusion. You know, CVS is both in the city and in the county, and if there's some requirement for bags that are different in the county than in the city, I think that creates a little bit of a hardship. I'm trying to find the language that's in there for that. And are they going back to committee with this? That's the other thing, is they made, Alderman Savage mentioned last night that it was going back to environmental. So does that mean we postpone it?
Who's the sponsor?
Rob Savage. Yeah.
I actually would, instead of postponing, what I would like to do is, if because I think we share the same concern, and so I think if the committee would sponsor the amendment, and it's on page 1, line 28, a retailer shall not provide a bag containing less than 50% post-consumer recycled content.
Yeah, if we could amend it to delete that requirement, Alderman Gay.
Yeah, and so I think there's two options that we have right now. The first being, because obviously it's you and I, that's 2-1, because the sponsor, Alderman Schoenemeyer, who also was on this committee, I don't believe that he has indicated he wanted to remove that requirement. But if we vote right now with our 2-1 majority to sponsor an amendment as the committee, we could strike that requirement. Or would you prefer that we allow the Environmental Matters Committee to work on the amendment? My only concern is I'm not even sure if there is an alternative to a bag containing less than 50% post-consumer recycled content that the committee would be happy with. And so I just would be fearful that maybe they don't amend it, and this would be our opportunity.
Wait, say the last part again? You'd prefer to what?
Or no, I'm saying I would just be a little fearful that maybe they don't amend it in Environmental Matters.
Yeah. So let's take advantage of our majority and make a recommendation for an amendment deleting that requirement. Is that okay with you?
That is, and so what I'll do is make a motion to strike.
Where is it again? Yeah.
Line
what?
Line 28.
Line 28.
Page 1.
Oh, there it is. Yes. I was on page 5 of 5 though, right?
Page 1 to 1 or page 5?
I have page 5 of 5.
Oh, you know what? It might be.
Wait, why
several.
is it 5 of 5?
The first reader. It looks like that stuff is already stricken.
What am I looking at? Hold on. Let's make
So
sure.
I'm on the first reader.
First reader.
On page 2. And under requirements, on line 28, it says a retailer shall not provide a paper bag containing less than 50%.
Yeah. But if
Okay.
it's weird because if you go to the top right, does yours say page 5 of 5?
Oh yeah, it does. I think that. Yeah.
Okay.
It's kinda weird.
I'll
Okay.
get Cynthia to look at that.
Yeah, you know the
And then,
line we're deleting.
so line 28.
Line
Okay.
28 on whatever page that is.
Okay.
So
Okay,
let me just make I'll make the motion clear. Make a motion to strike page 2, line 28.
I'll second that. To strike it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None.
Okay.
Okay. Got it.
All right.
And so this is a friendly amendment. Obviously,
Yes.
we still have the main intent of the bill. We are just striking the one controversial line. So
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
Do you want to, you still want to postpone it, even though you guys?
No, I think we're going on record
Okay. To recommend it favorably as amended.
recommending it favorably with the friendly amendment
As amended.
tonight.
And I'll second that recommendation to send it to the full council.
Okay. We good?
Mhm.
We're good.
Move on.
Any other on 0524? Are we all good there?
We're good.
Fantastic. Next item on the agenda is R1924, Eastport Choice Neighborhood Initiative Transformation. And essentially, this is the resolution that would express the council's will to allow HACA to use the Spa Road land to continue with the CNI project. I think, I mean, me personally, I if we could just postpone this one more meeting, I hate to do that, but just to our June meeting, and if we could have a better understanding, one, of the remediation cost, which I think Environmental Matters is looking at, the actual footprint that where housing would be located would be so helpful, because I'm hearing people, that say Spa Road, where the public road facilities are. And so people are thinking next to the gas station, across the street where the Salt Dome is, where the actual playground is. And so I don't think that's clear to the council or the general public. And then lastly, I think it's just, again, an understanding of the financing that goes into place here. Hoping that the city maintains ownership to the land and leasing it out at little or no cost.
Could you guys tell him to hold us
I,
at the table?
Eric Lashinsky is here to discuss. But before that, I just want to say, I agree with you, Alderman Gay, because I don't want a good plan to be shot down because of ignorance of what we're doing, right? I mean, I know that I'm getting email from neighbors from all sides, obviously, not knowing if this thing, if it's going to encroach on them, and of course the whole remediation issue. So if we could get more information on where exactly the footprint of this development is going to be, and obviously the scale of it. I mean, as you know, we wrote the resolution supporting workforce housing here, so it's not a question of that. It's just trying to get this, trying to be sensitive to questions that we're getting. And Mr. Lashinsky would probably like to say something.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer questions. Of course, I didn't come with any visuals to address that question in that way, but I can answer some of what you were talking about. For the record, Eric Lashinsky, Chief of Comprehensive Planning. We got a lot of questions about the intent and scope of how the site would be used during our comprehensive plan outreach with the communities around the city. And we address those in the current draft of the comprehensive plan that's on the city's website. And so what we're showing is a footprint for potential development on that site that is really closer to Spa Road on the highest elevation of the property. And really, because of its location close to the headwaters of Spa Creek and critical areas, we're being fairly sensitive to where realistically development could happen. And so if folks who are watching at home look at the comprehensive plan in the land use chapter, there is the future land use map. It's an exhibit in the land use chapter, and it shows that site, and it shows mixed use development in red for a portion of that site on both sides of Spa Road. It also shows environmental enhancement areas and recreational enhancement areas. So the former Weems Whalen Field is already dedicated as parkland that the city is working separately to reactivate as a new ball field site. And then closer to Spa Creek is an area where, reforestation would make sense. But we're showing enough of a footprint that it could accommodate housing and other uses that are appropriate. And so that's a good reference. And we also, in the comp plan, clarify, we got this question about, well, so it's a brownfield site, why would we be putting residential development on a brownfield site? And we had to clarify that we're not doing any development until a remediation plan is clear and we understand the extent of remediation, and we do that remediation. But with any remediation, with any brownfield site that you want to reactivate for something useful, you do have to have a sense of what it should ultimately be to guide the testing, environmental testing. So if we didn't say it was going to be housing, we would only be testing a very shallow depth of the soil, for a ball field site. But by saying we hope it should be housing, the testing is going much deeper. I think it goes to 14 feet into the soil to look at whether there's contamination there. So you really have to have a sense of what you would like that site to be, and then that guides the environmental testing. And just it's important to acknowledge that brownfield sites are cleaned and redeveloped every day all over the country. There are many in the city that have been transformed. Just next door to the Spa Road site is the Enclave Townhouse community, which was a brownfield site at one time. So it's not a crazy idea by any means. We just have to be responsible and follow the process. And that's all in the comprehensive plan if folks want to see it.
So you're referring, you have the 5 or 6 examples, so it's page 107 I have.
That's right, yeah.
The thing.
Yeah, we have a it's called major infill sites, I think is the
Large infill sites.
Yeah. Right. It's one of the sites that comp plan identifies as likely to be redeveloped in the near future and
Right.
provide some guidance. So.
Hey, Alderman Gay, when I look at this resolution, the therefore clause, it basically says that we are adopting the Eastport Choice Neighborhood Initiative Transformation Plan and approve the use of the former DPW site.
Right.
So it's not like we're approving a plan or
That's right.
a massing or anything like that, but you know what I mean? Like for what's in front of us tonight.
Of course, and I think that is part of my concern, is that the language is so vague, and it is essentially leaving it up to interpretation. When I read that, it's like, okay, so they can use the former public works property as a part of the CNI, but again, what does that entail? I know that in the discussions they were saying, okay, if I don't know the exact numbers, but I'll just say, if the plan was to put 600 homes at the existing Eastport Terrace and Harbor House site, and then the ECA and neighbors got mad, and they're like, oh, the density is too high. And so the city's like, okay, instead of putting 600 there, you put 500 and then put the other 100 on Spa Road. And it's like, why? How is the city benefiting from that? And if anything, in my opinion, I look at it as a failure of the use of the CNI project. The purpose of that, to me in particular, is to expand the density, expand the zoning in the Eastport area to allow for the larger development, and then use the Spa Road land for a completely different project where the city could actually create revenue. I think that's my big thing. The city has no true, well, obviously we have property tax, but I'm saying, like, a very unique opportunity to create revenue through, city-owned housing, or through a PPP with a affordable housing developer, where we still have substantial stake in the game, where we make money. To me, giving this to HACA, or to whomever will be manager on the once the development is complete, on a 99-year lease at $1 a year, is just like, I'm actually worried it'll turn out or end up like some of the properties that we have in their current condition now. And so that's where I am. I'd like to see the verbiage have more teeth, more financial requirement and responsibility from both the city and the partner that we're hoping to sign into a deal with for this land. I just think it's too lucrative to potentially pass up an opportunity for revenue in a different type of development.
I have a question. Totally understand I do totally understand what you just said, but there's a but here. Is the HUD eligible? It reads, let me just read it. The whereas to meet HUD eligibility for up to $50 million in construction finance, the CNI transformation plan proposes to replace the existing 357 units with the same number, and an additional 365 designed for a diverse mix of residents, et cetera, et cetera. Is that cast in stone? That's the requirements of the funding?
Yeah, let me explain why.
Do you know what I'm getting at, Dwan? That's like the kicker here on getting the money.
It's this came up. I can't remember who I was corresponding with, but the scoring for these very competitive implementation grants that would, give us up to $50 million for construction. The scoring puts point value on different categories, and one of them is, are you creating a viable mixed income community? And to do that, they really want you to essentially double the number of units that are there today with other income levels. And so when the consultant team was working on this, on our transformation plan, and they've been through this process many times with other communities, they've done the planning process and then they've gone after the implementation funding. They felt very strongly that if we did not have a strategy to get to that double number of units, we would really be not competitive for that implementation funding. And at the same time, through their analysis of our existing zoning requirements and critical area requirements, the carrying capacity of that existing Eastport Terrace Harbor House site came to a little bit over 600 units in terms of how much could we realistically fit on that site based on the existing regulations. There's 354 units today, so getting to 600 is still a pretty significant bump, but we really need to get over 700 to be competitive for the HUD funding. So that's really where the Spa Road strategy came into play. It wasn't that, it's hard to predict the future, but, community sentiment might want even less than 600. It's hard to say, but we wanted to say, well, we can do 600 based on current requirements, regulations, but we really need another site to get to that 700 plus. And that's really where it came from. But, I would also just say, to your point, Alderman Gay, that I agree with the need to be very strategic about using that Spa Road site. And personally, I believe that it has the space to do more than just housing and to do a kind of mixed use development that could have city offices, it could have retail, it could have other things that are sort of complementary to the housing, So I don't think it has to be one or the other, but.
No, and I totally agree with you there. again, my concern is not development on the property. Even with the remediation, of course, I'll get back to the remediation in a second. My concern isn't with development on the property. I think my concern is just making sure that we make the right financial investment, and in 10 years, the 97 homes that are there aren't falling apart and the city is trying to, funnel money into the rehabilitation of those projects. And it makes me just think, obviously HACA has just went through an entire, I think at Morris H. Blum, they went through a redevelopment of the existing structure. And the estimate is about $150,000 per unit. But I have constituents calling already and saying that, there's leaks in their walls. There's, what appear to be mold issues there. And so for me, it's just like, do we really want to sign a 99-year lease, even though it's for $1, giving away the rights of this land under the guise that it'll create housing that then we have to turn around and rehabilitate for the next 50 years? That is my concern. And I represent the ward. So I have an intimate understanding of some of these issues and the struggles that the constituents go through, not just in 6, but in 2 and 3, where there are, these affordable housing developments that have just not had the best of care. And so that's what I would like to see in this resolution. Just, I guess, something that protects the city's best interest, if I'm making myself make sense there.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense to me. I think I know that the sponsor of the resolution, that was on his mind as well. And so I think, and that's partly why it was worded that there was no appetite to sort of give over the land to another entity. Essentially, it should be supporting the CNI initiative. But I think there could be some better wording in there to clarify, what the city's goals are for that site, beyond meeting the CNI requirements. So I don't think that would run counter to the resolution, but I think that there are lots of ways that development could be structured to retain, for the city to retain some say in, how it gets developed. It's pretty open, so.
And just again for clarity, so the proposed CNI plan is for 722 units. Only 625 can go on the existing site, and then 97 homes will go on the Spa Road site. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's based on the transformation plan. Spa Road could possibly support more, or but that's sort of how we did the math in the transformation plan.
Any other questions from the committee on this?
It's just a comment on, we have to go all in on this, this is, I always refer to this as sort of the heart of the problem. And if we renovate the existing and just sort of set a standard, it would be hoped that these 97 units would be part of that, to address Alderman Gay's concern about being in the same situation 20 years from now. So I don't know what guardrails we could put in this resolution, Alderman Gay, to convince us that this will not be another HACA problem.
So,
yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Please continue. My apologies.
I was just wondering what the impact of any postponement would be on this. Or can we?
I'll defer to if Mr. Lashinsky knows if there's a deadline for this right now. And again, my only goal is if we postpone it to the 17th, where they can make a formal presentation. But in the meantime, I'd also like to maybe get with the city attorney and see what other options exist. And also have a better understanding of what happens when you do a land swap like this for, 50 or X amount of years. What are the city's protections? Are there other financing opportunities that exist before we just blanket sign this over?
So I just want to reinforce that this resolution does not have the city signing over the property to any other entity. That's not in the resolution. There's no intent to do that. My reading of the resolution is that it's worded so that the city is not bound to just dispose of the property, so to speak. Understanding that there's a lot of discussion that needs to happen for how the development process will work, what the city's role is going to be in selecting the developer, et cetera. So I think that really this is just providing some consensus that the Spa Road development of the Spa Road site has some connection to the C&I project, that it's a viable space for meeting the C&I goals, but exactly what that would look like is still wide open and really in the city's court, frankly. I think it's still city property. That's not changing at all. But in terms of what's riding on this is that HACA owns Eastport Terrace and Harbor House, and it's in their purview to do the request for proposal for a developer partner. And so part of the idea in having City Council approve this resolution would be that in that RFP that HACA puts out, they can say the city is strongly supporting the C&I project, is willing to use the Spa Road site in some part to meet the goals of the C&I program, even if that's not defined, but just that it would give developers who are interested in this project some more incentive to get involved, particularly good developers, and so without having some consensus from City Council, HACA probably wouldn't put that into the RFP, and then it's a little bit,
So,
but.
Alderman Gay, how about if I propose an amendment tonight to say, because there's only one whereas clause here, so it ends with saying to meet the goals of the plan, and I would want to add, however, ensuring that the DPW development is in the best financial interest of the city in the long term. And whereas once a concept is developed, it will be reviewed by the City Council to determine as such. Bad English, but do you know what I'm trying to do, Alderman Gay? Like, we get a chance to look at it and say, no, this isn't in the best interest, sorry. Or I'm sort of not wanting to hold up anything, but yet at the same time address our concerns.
I just would feel much more comfortable postponing it.
Okay.
Just to give us time to work through the language.
Okay. No, I totally respect that. Okay, so I move to postpone then?
And I'll second that.
Till when? June 19th?
June 17th.
Our city council meeting is June 17th because MML is the next week after that.
Oh, no,
So
the MML
if
thing.
you guys want to move to the 18th, let me see if that's okay with Mark. Mark, is the 18th fine?
and while she's doing that, what I really want to send, and I've mentioned this several times, there's an example when I was working with a delegate on housing policy last year in Silver Spring. There was a very, very similar piece of land. And the the county worked in tandem with an affordable housing developer. And they created, I think, 168 condos. They were all sold at below the market rate. You obviously had to have income requirements to qualify for the purchase. And they sold all the homes. We're talking ownership. And the city or the county maintained possession of the land. So they were making revenue off of that. And the affordable housing developer, because the county had pitched in $4 million, they paid that back to them. And so they made money off the land. They made money back from the original loan that they had made, and they provided 168 homes, not rent. We're not renting, homes for families. That is what I have always envisioned on Spa Road, even when the mayor was talking about putting a pedestrian bridge right there. And so that's just where I am. That's just where I am.
No, I got it. Yeah. So we always say we have limited opportunities, right, for land use, so. Okay.
So let's we'll close out here on R1924. It's postponed until our June meeting. We've agreed on that. I think we don't have any more items on the agenda, but because I've seen Mr. Lashinsky here, if you wanted to speak to the bike path, USNA bike path situation that we discussed last night, I'd be happy to let you do that instead of having to wait until next month if you would like.
Yeah, thank you. I would like to, and Brian Callahan's here as well. I think it would be helpful to give just like an overview of why this resolution is even a thing. It's not every day that one of our boards or commissions puts forward a recommendation that becomes a resolution. So I'll start out. Maybe Brian can chime in, but this is probably, from a regional perspective, this trail connecting the city to the B&A bike trail that goes all the way up to Baltimore is probably the most critical regional trail, missing link, because it has the potential to really serve a huge, diverse population of people who don't feel comfortable leaving the city on a bike or even really being on a bike within the city. And potentially be a bike commuter corridor, a recreational corridor, a way to get people to parks and other destinations. And it's long deferred. Essentially, we have the B&A bike trail. That was a major achievement in the 80s, I think, and that was decades in the making, the old rail line. It stops just outside of Annapolis, and I'm sure there's a story why it doesn't continue into Annapolis, but that's been a handicap for the city, both people coming into the city or people leaving on bike. And today, you can get nearly to the city line and then get sort of thrown into traffic, and it's really hazardous. And so we've been advocating this. Before I came on board in 2020, this was already a big deal, and Brian can probably comment on that.
So, Brian Callahan, the mayor's office. When we got into office, the mayor had campaigned on connecting us to that trail, and there was nothing in the budget. All I could find is a 2011 bike ped master plan, and so we asked the county to help us. Sally Nash found just enough for us to put in a little matching piece, and the county put up most of it, and we did 2 studies. One was to connect us to the B&A Trail out King George that direction, and one of them was to connect the Poplar Trail out to the county that direction. So we did those studies. Then about the time those were finishing, Eric came on, and we then promptly got $250,000 grants to do design work for both of those phases. And we've been going from that to now designing them and building them. But today I went up to the unveiling of a new sign on the B&A Trail up at Jones Station Road. And all the time we were there doing this unveiling and photo shoot for this new sign, every kind of people, every age, every color, every kind of person were driving right by us on that trail. And those people need to be able to get into Annapolis safe, and our citizens need to be able to get to that amenity safe. And right now, it's just not. So while it's been 6 long, painful years, we're making progress. Hopefully, we'll be putting shovels in the ground in a few pieces this coming winter, but we have some limitations because we have to work with the state and the county. And on that particular spot, the little Navy, the Academy, and the big Navy, the Pentagon. So there's a lot of pieces, and it takes much longer than any of us anticipated.
Yeah, that's an important point. This is as important as this trail segment is to the city. We don't own any of the right-of-way. It's Navy owned, it's state owned, or maybe a little bit of county. No, it's all just state and Navy. And so we have to work through those entities. We've been advocating for certain design features that we think will optimize the level of safety and accessibility for as many cyclists as possible, of all ages and skill levels. And we want to make sure that the trail is done right and it does not get shortchanged. And so as we've been working through the process that the state is running, MDOT SHA, it became clear that some of the design decisions were maybe not going to be in the best interests of that sort of high level of safety and accessibility. And the Transportation Board had been watching the process unfold, and they really felt strongly that they needed to advocate for a better design. And so to give you a perspective of what that means, you have to cross the bridge over the Severn River to get to the B&A Trail, but the so-called Navy Bridge. Today, there's a shoulder on each side that is used as the bike lane. While cars are driving 40, 50 miles an hour right past you, it's really not a place that somebody who's new to riding a bike would ever want to travel on. And so if we're going to improve the connection from Annapolis to the B&A Trail over that bridge, it only makes sense to have a protected bike corridor from the traffic so that anybody feels safe. And that's really the crux of it. We really want a protected bike corridor over that bridge and on both sides of the bridge to just make it as safe as possible. And to do that, it's going to possibly cost a little more money. There's some more engineering involved, but we don't think that we should be shortchanging a connection of this importance. So,
Alderman, right where I live, so all day long, I watch people drive down Hilltop, also every age on bikes. Sometimes to feel safer, they actually drive on the wrong side of the road. It's just so they can see the oncoming traffic coming at them versus coming behind them. Sometimes without lights, it's terrifying. And I just try to think of it as if I had an 8 or 10-year-old, I want to create these places that I would feel safe with them riding on. And right now that bridge isn't. And so we've recommended that they move the bike lanes that are on both sides of that bridge to one side and put the 2 lanes of traffic closer together and on the other side. they seem to always have some sort of excuse or resistance, but that's why we go to a lot of meetings, and in those meetings, we're doing just like you are trying to do tonight, do the best thing for our citizens and making sure that engineers or cost don't make us do something that is inadequate, that is going to be a waste of money because nobody's going to use it.
Is there something with bridge design? Because you, what's really difficult there is the height of the curbs. So when you make the decision to use the sidewalk, yes, I ride my bike. You know, you lift your bike up to the sidewalk and you're like, whoa. It's like I made a decision then to just stay on the sidewalk because there's this, and the same with the Eastport Bridge. The curb, the whatever is so.
It's so high, I'm always worried I'm going to, trying to keep over, I'm going to clip my my pedal on it and then fall right in the car.
Exactly.
The
And
design.
I think I've done that.
Yeah, I mean, one of the designs that we've been advocating for would essentially widen one side, the north side of the bridge, the sidewalk on that side. It's currently about 5 feet wide. Widen it to 11 feet and put a barrier so that you're sort of in a, you know, you as a cyclist or pedestrian, you're really isolated from the traffic. You know, you don't even have to think about going over the edge. There's no edge. You know, you're basically in a confined, you know, two-way trail situation with ample width, you know, like being on the B&A trail, but just going over the bridge.
They are looking at that, but they were concerned that the added weight of the concrete, that the bridge was maybe engineered to be able to support that, but we've heard that that isn't the case at all, so we just have to keep advocating for it.
Yeah. I have friends that, a couple our age, that live in Baltimore, and they ride their bikes. I mean, talk about equity. I mean, to be able to ride a bike continuously from Baltimore to Annapolis, and they used to always joke about reaching King George Street and it just stops, you know?
Yeah.
The South Shore Trail is also underway. One phase is done. Another phase, I think, is in the process, and then there's 2 more phases, and that will come out right at the mall, and you'll be able to go all the way to the airport, that direction.
That direction.
So we're making progress. It's just like turtle pace, and it drives us both nuts.
Yeah. So that's.
You're muted, Duan.
Oh, Dwan, you're muted.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
I have 2 quick questions. One is how do these routes tie into existing or proposed local routes? I'll let you answer that one first.
So at the unveiling of the sign today, they showed, and I have some pictures, I'll send them to you, but it shows we are on the East Coast Greenway, which goes from Maine to Florida. And we are on, what is the other one called, that goes from Delaware all the way to LA? And we happen to be right in those. So those major national trails, which are piecemeal right now, but people are making both of those trips. And then there's another one too, that's the 9/11, hits all the spots of 9/11, and we are on that too.
But like, if you're asking about sort of the local connections and like so if somebody comes into Annapolis from Arnold, from Baltimore, and what happens next? I mean, we're working on 2 major projects that they would be able to connect to. You know, one is called the College Creek Connector. That would really go from King George along College Creek underneath the Rowell Boulevard Bridge and then come up alongside St. Anne's Cemetery and connect at People's Park to the West-East Express, right on Calvert Street there. The county is doing a separate, so the segment that is focus of the resolution would get people to the intersection of Annapolis Street and Taylor Avenue, where essentially where that 7-Eleven is, the firehouse. The county and the state are working on an improvement along Taylor Avenue that will start working its way towards West Street. The current segment that they've designed gets you to the Navy Stadium on a 10-foot wide separated path from the traffic. And they're going to be advancing it beyond there. But we're really trying to keep people out of traffic so there's no conflict. The days of the bike lane on the street that's just a stripe are probably going to be going away. It's just not real. If you're really trying to encourage people to ride who may not be incentivized to do it, you really have to provide them separated. I mean, you saw it in the Netherlands, I'm sure. Just when you have your own right of way, and you don't have to worry about, getting around cars. It makes it a lot easier. So
We're juggling a lot of balls with a lot of pieces right now, but as soon as we are able to break ground on a few of those, both of us have desires. We've done a study, thanks to Eric getting a grant, from the Eastport Bridge all the way to Quiet Waters Park out Bay Ridge. And one of the pieces that we hope to break ground on this winter is from Forest Drive past Spa to Boxwood, and then it will stop, but it will get you through the dangerous spot right now where the gentleman was killed by the Heritage Baptist Church, and we'll get you past that horrible intersection of Spa and Hilltop, but then it will just stop a couple blocks up. But our next mission is to take the bike lanes that are on both sides of Hilltop and put them on one side and separate them and make that go all the way to the Bay Ridge. So we have a lot of good desires and intentions, and we're doing our best to make progress as fast as possible.
Yeah, and I think that's the Hilltop. I am passionate about that project in particular because I do have a lot of constituents that are complaining about the Hilltop-Tyler intersection, and then the Primrose-Hilltop intersection as well. And all of that's connected. And I obviously know there's plans to do work on Tyler Avenue with the bike lane, which I will be thrilled to have. And just, you mentioned the connectivity. I'm wondering, so if if we are working on some of the more local routes and, the congestion issue, in particularly, like there was an accident the other day in Annapolis, or a fire on Hills. I guess it was a fire in Bay Ridge, and it had the city backed up. Some people were saying it took them an hour to get home. What are the possibility of working with the Department of Transportation and using some of these bike lanes for microtransit, like smaller electric vehicles? What is there any thought into that? I mean, if you have a bike lane like the bike trail, okay. My grandmother lives in Severna Park off of White's Road, so I've walked the bike trail my entire life, and so I'm just curious, like how you are allowed certain motorized vehicles on there. So how does that work in Annapolis? Can we work with the department to integrate that?
That's a good question.
What about electric bikes, though, Dwan? I mean, isn't that what we're trying to do, too, is have people use electric bikes to get somewhere quicker?
There's definitely going to be an expansion of electric bike use in the future. I'm fairly certain of that, as prices drop and people start, and they open the door to cycling for a lot of people.
I know they're expensive, but and we have our bike share program, which we're trying to promote more. But I mean, the idea so these trails, typically 10 feet in width is the minimum that we try to do. That's kind of a federal standard or state standard, and that's kind of that. I mean, technically that is wide enough for a car. So, I mean, in a real emergency situation,
Let me
but-
clarify. I'm not saying electric car. I'm
Right.
thinking of, like the smaller,
Like
you know
golf
how we
carts.
get around. Yeah, how we get around. Sometimes they have the golf cart like 6. Okay, and say if I'm at the Annapolis Mall, right?
Right.
And the micro transit hub is there. And, so I can get in one of these carts and just take a straight shot down the We Express, and I'll be downtown. I'm getting from my job or from my house to the mall using electric vehicle on this proposed route. I mean, is that something that you all have all considered?
We're focusing mostly on bikes and, electric bikes, electric scooters, pedestrians. But the point, what I was trying to say about the width and being able to accommodate a wider vehicle, a golf cart could be accommodated. I mean, we're not necessarily planning, I wouldn't say that's the primary intent, because, really we don't have a viable bike network today. So kind of we're trying to create that bike network. But the width of these will probably be flexible enough to provide some room for other types of vehicles in the future. I mean, it's hard to predict all the mobility services that, are going to come, but, just getting that width though is kind of like that's the big challenge. I mean, almost every trail situation we're working on, we're having to acquire additional space to get to that like minimum 10 feet wide. So getting more than that ends up being even more of a challenge. So we're just trying to get to 10 feet, and then we can work with that in a variety of ways. But I think I don't know if I'm necessarily answering your question, but we get grants for bike trails, not necessarily for like micro transit. So that's part of it too. We can design a path that could serve a variety of users in different ways, but it has to principally be kind of a bike pedestrian corridor. That's really, when we get a grant for a project, that's really what it has to be for. But
we also have to be cautious and considerate of the residents, because we already get pushback that there will be too many bikes coming. We don't want you to widen it this wide. And I think, while I really like how you're thinking, I think that would cause us even more heartache in compromises because of opening it up too much.
But what you're alluding to, though, I mean, what I think of when I hear you describing this, your kind of vision here is like bus rapid transit is something that a lot of cities have, where they have a dedicated lane. And, the bus, it could be a small vehicle, it could be like our Magenta shuttle here, but it's just going back and forth, And when I think about the future of Forest Drive and, what a redesigned Forest Drive would look like, you would have a dedicated lane for a bus that is getting people out to the Park and Ride, to Annapolis High School, to the county offices, and then you take all those people who would be driving alone in their cars off the road, and you open up all that space. So, I think that's another way of tackling the idea, but.
I'm thinking that and a mixture of Annapolis and the villages in Florida. It's like, getting the less cars, more carts rhetoric going. My last question, and then I'll turn it over to the committee. On the map that they sent us last night from Commissioner Riegel, it has a little section that says like in progress. And let me just give you the page. Hold on 1 second. Oh, it's actually the first page. It has the trail network. So blue is existing, which is obviously mostly county and state. Yellow is in progress. And then it has the gray dotted line, which is planned, which is in Annapolis. And that is what you're talking about over the Severn River, correct?
I believe so, if I'm thinking of the same map.
Okay. Yeah. Because it actually zooms in and it has the bridge there. Okay.
Is that the one that goes all the way up BNA Trail and all the way out to BWI? South Shore Trail?
This is it. Yeah, it has almost the existing. Yep. Patapsco, BWI.
Bike AAA put that together. It's a great map. And it shows the gaps that we need to fill that are really crucial.
Yeah.
Anything from the committee on this?
No, it's funny. I'm not being devil's advocate, but I'm sending you this article I read in the newspaper 2 days ago. It was the New York Times that the e-bikes have created chaos. It's good to hear these stories because you know what to prevent, but and they rose in quantity during the pandemic because essential workers use them to deliver stuff and all, and so they still do. But it does bring up a serious question on balancing the pedestrian use of the sidewalk. And I think to your point of having that sort of separate, that does separate from the pedestrians, because this article was mostly, and I've seen that, like I've been to, you've seen this one in New York. If you've been to New York City, you try to cross an intersection and you actually, well, Amsterdam must have had it. The Netherlands must have had it, where you're actually looking for bikes before you're looking for cars.
Yeah, right.
Anyways.
Well, the Hilltop Lane project that Brian referenced, in the CIP, Public Works put in an item that would be essentially, when they repave Hilltop Lane, the idea is to redesign it's one of the few roads in the city where we have ample width to do just about whatever we want. And so the idea would be to have a really wide trail for bikes, but keep the sidewalk so that you have, separate space, and so somebody on a bike can just kind of go as fast as they want, but the pedestrians feel safe.
So what happened last night? I forgot Alderman Gay. Did we pass that?
We did.
We had to, because we had to.
Yeah, there was a timeline concern, and so
Right.
in exchange, we are grateful that they offered us testimony tonight. Just clarity on the project. Like I said, I was just a little more concerned about the local routes and how that intertwined with this regional transit route. But yeah, I feel comfortable with it. I also like the high sidewalk artwork that is on the last page of this as well. I think that's pretty cool. And being a city like Annapolis, where we have to paint everything, some bike lane artwork, I'm sure would be appropriate for our town. So if there are no other questions, I am fully satisfied and on board and thankful for the staff for explaining this.
Yeah, no, I'm fine. Thanks for coming out.
Sure.
Awesome. Thank you. And also, Eric, I'm seeing the positive feedback from the intersection. I know I was not an advocate, but I will turn into one over at Madison and President. So yeah,
That's good. That's good.
I'm
to hear.
excited. I'll be excited about that ribbon cutting or sign. We have to do something to celebrate that. So
Yeah, the installation is probably going to happen either the 17th and 18th of June or the 20th and 21st. So we'll be putting a flyer out when we lock in the date. But it's going to be kind of a opportunity for a community to participate in that. So, yeah.
fantastic. I'd love to work with you on that. So awesome. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
I
Great. That's
believe that concludes the agenda.
Does,
There were no other.
we have Assistant City Manager here. Do you have anything? No, she's shaking her head no. Okay. Vicky's here, so I didn't know if she wanted to add anything. So.
Thank you very much, Assistant City Manager Buckland, for being there tonight as well. I'm sorry I kept the staff so long. So without further ado, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
you.
None?
None.
All right. I'll see you all tomorrow.
Tomorrow, I know. All
Tomorrow
right.
at 3. Well,
Yeah.
awesome. Be safe.
Good night, Dwan.